This should have been reviewed a long time ago. 0091, alternatively romanized as 00ku no Ichi, and there's your expected alliterative pun for it, was a manga series Shotaro Ishinomori wrote from 1967 to 1970, possessing a similar themology to his more notable work of the time, Cyborg 009, but isn't actively related to it. The series follows the espionage exploits of Mylene Hoffman, the titular 0091, in a more James Bond 007-styled world. Hell, the organization she works for, the 00 organization, is a Western power block not unlike the MI6 with their 00 agents, so the root inspiration is pretty obviously Ian Fleming's Cold War spy novels, as the first 5 Sean Connery film adaptations were insanely popular at the time. A girl born in the eastern bloc of the world meant to be analogous to Cold War communist powers, Mylene and her family tried to escape their oppressors and flee to the western bloc to freedom, only to be caught in a battle that broke out, leaving them all as collateral damage. Saved by a member of the West's intelligence organization and left in an orphanage, as she grew up she found herself wanting to find the true freedom her parents sought, and thought she could do so through the 00 organization, quickly becoming their top field agent with one flaw: the trauma of her family's loss leaving her emotionally stunned and how she acts towards others, and yet finding herself incapable of denying the empathy she may feel but just can't express. As you'd expect from the commonality of, well, most of the characters Ishinomori created, Mylene is a cyborg, possessing technological augmentation and abilities intended for her spy work, which have been installed throughout her body, including...
You ready, Boots? Start walking.
And you all thought Austin Powers made that up! The series has been adapted twice before, first in 1969 by Toei into the 13-episode series Flower Action 009/1, which as far as I could find from word on it, as I could not actually find the series itself in video form, was a terrible adaptation. I think you can tell why. Then there was a 12-episode anime adaptation and remake in 2006, which was adapted by Shinsuke Onishi, himself known for the recent Hurricane Polymer adaptation and Cyborg 009's 2002 anime adaptation that ADV licensed and dubbed, but similarly fell to mixed reception. The common pros being of this anime being the portrayal of Mylene herself, the music, and the expected fan service for such a series was done in a very tasteful, adult, and mature manner. But due to the source material being so old, critics felt it was basic and dated in comparison to more recent spy genre media, and how each episode was more of a collection of standalone adventures instead of the serialized narrative usually seen of Japanese media, with the series essentially coming off as a Cold War-era Ghost in the Shell that was mashed up with Bond flick cliches. So it wasn't so much the series being bad, because it wasn't, but its throwback nature just not appealing to some viewers and professional critics. Personally, as someone more familiar with the works and ideology of Shotaro Ishinomori, I liked it and would recommend it. But then we have this 2013 film adaptation recently imported by Media Blasters, which was written by Keiichi Hasegawa, directed by Koichi Sakamoto, and stars a number of Commodore and Super Sentai alumni, including Commodore Axel, Hurricane Blue, and Gokai Yellow, and it's kind of infamous. What I got initially from Tokopedia administrator Aldo the Fox when the film came up on a social media conversation is, well... yeah, I think I might have made a mistake. But it's not like it'll be worse than Travelers, right? Right? We open with a monologue on the state of the future. This is a world where the Cold War never ended.
Must crush capitalism.
The world divided into 2 political blocks with a number of border countries which maintain the tumultuous peace. Japan, J-Block, being infiltrated by spies. At a bar, which I can't show footage of because topless dancers in this is trying to be put up on YouTube, we touch on a group of spies led by a dumbass named Spinger and a woman named Butterfly.
We ask them politely yet firmly to leave.
He then shoots the guy to make it a bloody steak. Because, irony? He was getting you another one free of charge, dude. You don't know what's in his blood. You might have contaminated your steak with an STD. Now, you can kind of tell how this adaptation has failed from the outset. In the previous 0091 media, there was an air of civility and chivalry in the conflict and the espionage game. And while more recent spy genre things have gotten more violent and graphic in the depiction of its violence, there really wasn't just sex and violence for no reason. The thug is entrenched by the remaining dancer, who, of course, is our Mylene Hoffman for the movie, played by Mayuko Iwasa. She's scanned for weapons before being brought before the boss, where they get on with the nasty in a gratuitously drawn-out scene. You know you messed up when the anime adaptation did this more tastefully, where she tricks him into revealing the location of the morgue, a place where people seeking escape from the East Bloc are mutilated and used for human experimentation. But to show that Mylene in this iteration isn't the best of spies like the source counterpart, Stinger instantly figures her out, resulting in a need for a shootout. Again, I told you Austin Powers didn't make that up. With Stinger dead, Butterfly takes over her partner's operation, necessitating Mylene do more cleanup and... What the hell is with that outfit? Are those zippers over her boobs? Well, from a practicality standpoint, it would prevent her clothing from being torn up in the event she needed to use them, because if you watch the anime adaptation, that did happen. They don't, thus the zippers are worthless. But still, the entire red suit like that, no contrasting colors, it's just an overall very uninteresting design, especially poor comparison, again, to the design work from both the Ishinomori manga and the 2006 adaptation. Now, while I admit I haven't been able to find many pages of the manga, though I repeatedly was told that the anime is a one-to-one adaptation with just very slight differences, but from the ones I did, both when she did spy work and in her off times, she dressed as if she were a freaking human being. Here, dystopian future worse in every way than could have been imagined, so of course we then need to slut it up, just make it seem as if it's more adult. When, no, that just makes it more juvenile. That said, the fights we see here are of course to the Koichi Sakamoto standard, of brilliantly directed choreography possessing their own narrative to the fight, finally reasserting Mylene's dominance in her not only not losing her cool throughout this, but maintaining total control. However, as everyone else leaves, Mylene finds one last man left, covered in blood and dirt, with nothing to live for. Man, Ryu sure fell on hard times after Akiko asked for that divorce. Darkest timeline indeed. This is Chris, and we find him in a broken state of just mumbling a half-forgotten song to himself, which for some reason draws Mylene to him. She returns to the 00 organization, where she's healed up, and we are given a brief version of her backstory, I presume for the audience. In how her family was killed escaping the East Bloc, how she was taken into the 00 organization, beaten to the ground in training to make her want to be their spy girl pawn, and augmented into a cyborg by Maria Dido from Double Forever? Huh, I guess this is what would have happened had she not gotten Foundation X to fund her necro-over research. Beyond physical augmentation, she gained 7 hidden tools in her body, one of which being the gun boobs, which is a staple of the Ishinomori stuff where his cyborgs always have some onboard innate abilities beyond the basic augmentation package. After her rejuvenation bath, she reports to her boss, Ganma World Minister Edith? Again, clearly this is the darkest timeline result of the Kamen Rider series going bad. Curse you, Shinichiro Shirakura! Actually, I really shouldn't be cursing Shirakura for once, though he is certainly deserving of it. As despite this movie being made by Toei because of their existing contract for Ishinomori properties, he wasn't behind this one. Instead, we should be cursing Kazuo Kato, who actually was the head producer for this one. Kato, if you're not familiar with him, is yet another one of Toei's bad producers, though he is not exclusive to Toei, with almost his entire library being made up of critical and financial disasters. He's probably the reason this got the paint job of the generic sex and guns dystopia, instead of being an actual spy drama, as other things on his resume include Hurricane 10 Years After, which sucked, and Hentai Kamen, which sucked, and the Parasite Doctor duology, which sucked, and Tomy Unlimited, which sucked. Hell, the only thing he's produced that may have some notoriety has been the Ju-On films, also known as the Grudge franchise that spun off as a competitor, and then later cross over with the Ring franchise. But those films were said to suck so badly that the American remake from the 2000s that starred Sarah Michelle Gellar was considered a better film, even though it was also considered to be terrible. And of course, most pertinently to stuff I've actually reviewed, Kamen Rider the First and the Next, which is agreed by the fandom to suck. The man as a producer has not been responsible for a single good movie, and the side reason being developmental interference, so anyone who would know the name, even with Kasagawa and Sakamoto's pedigree attached to it, would know to stay the hell away. Anyways, Edith, playing Agent 020, gives her next assignment. A group of East Block agents abducted their scientist, Dr. Dr. Klein, one of their assailants being Minami Tsukui! My god, does she get around. This is the third time in a row she's cameoed in something where I didn't expect to see her. Was she typecast as special agents or something? They must be creating super soldiers seeking to claim Pandora's box.
ファーストプロジェクトとは
I was kidding! 20 tries to infer the idea that Klein's like her mom due to her being behind Mylene's augmentations, making her flash back to her actual mom, and give the inference she was insulted by that. But the agents, with them cornered, try to get info out of Klein mocking them for it, as Klein's lab is surrounded by SWAT agents, who in turn mock Mylene when she shows up to actually do the job for them. Have I mentioned how much I despise this trope and anyone writing anything based on Ishinomori's work? Cause you kind of missed the primary moral of all of it, in that no matter how inhuman you become physically, you retain your humanity as long as you continue to possess your human spirit and morality. It was kind of a big thing he emphasized in literally everything he ever made. Actually, when I first saw this guy, something bugged me about him as he looked really freaking familiar. Well, thanks to IMDb having the best credits listing of any site even giving details on this movie, and trust me, the details are sparse as no one wants to touch it with a 10-foot pole, I eventually found out that this is Kazutoshi Yokoyama, better known as the suit actor for O-Red, Red Racer, and Mega Red, and also played Ko Tetsugami in Kamen Rider Force. I now get why they cast him for a bit part. Upon entering the lab, Mylene gets into a brawl with the enemy agents, and even 3-on-1 in fighting with daggers, Mylene cleans their clocks. Though Minami Tsukui at least gets a few moments to shine with her own martial skill. Really, they're simply cannon fodder to once more show how advanced and capable she is than them, resulting in their home country deciding to burn notice and abandon them, feeding everything they fought for is meaningless, so Mylene doesn't have to kill them.
020から伺いました。あなたが私の来るのが遅すぎる。
We're seriously doing this cliche? It's seriously I needed to have a parent complex in here. And then Klein shoots her captors who had already surrendered, dead. Meh, still a better death than Minami had in Gaim. However, as things wrap up, Mylene sees the man from earlier, Chris, is actually an experiment part of Project Faust, that he ended up here after she broke up the slave ring, and it's revealed she broke up the slave ring because their demands had become unreasonable for their working relationship with J Block. Thus, the protection granted had been revoked. Mylene, again indignant at this revelation that she was just used as an impotent attack dog, frees Chris, who reveals he doesn't remember anything about himself. Thus, Mylene then names Chris, as his eyes remind her of crystals. She asked him for some reason to sing the melody she heard from him earlier, as she liked it and found it calming. It reminding her of one her mother would perform for her and her brother for some unexplained reason. Again, that is ridiculously cliche, not anything remotely like Mylene, and unlike other series which have made use of it, doesn't really have any basis and grounding like, say, when Zero Black Blood used it, or Kyoryuger used it which validated it. However, it has no real place here, as there's other less obnoxious cliches you could have made use of. But enough about that dumbness, it's time for another cyborg to show up. Specifically, now Nagasawa. Sometimes it really does seem as if she's desperate for a paycheck with some of these parts I find her in. Though, the ironic thing about this, the outfit Nao's wearing, it is immensely more appropriate and better designed than that stupid top they had her running around in Traveler's Dimension Police. Seriously, these are both dumb and have poor costume design, but it's far more clear they actually made a freaking effort in this movie for it. Now slaughters the SWAT agents with her immense regenerating powers. Wow, the Four's rendition of the Assassination Classroom is weird. With now being far more robotic in her actions than Mylene, meaning Mylene might just have met her match in augmented human perfection. It required Mylene unzip both her top and her undershirt to use her machine gun boobs on. Now. Then what was the point of the freaking zippers over her boobs if they were only going to be cosmetic? Was this outfit designed by Tetsuya Nomura? But the power of boobs proves itself useless on Now, leading to Mylene being disabled so Now can grab Chris and use him both as a hostage and to complete her mission in claiming him for her superiors. Considering their previous working relationship, this feels like revenge for how he acted during the Invisible Dopant case. Definitely revenge for the Invisible Dopant case. Fortunately, the injury was a through-and-through can he'll live, letting Mylene chase after the enemy cyborg, only to run straight into a military helicopter. She somehow survives being shot at by it, leading her to chase it on her motorcycle, only for that to lead her to being chased by it. You really are not good at this, Mylene. Kind of missed the stealth part of being a secret agent. Hell, this entire movie seems to miss the point of that. It causes the conflict to spread into a homeless district, forcing her to shield a little girl with her having more needless flashbacks to the tragedy of her past.
Monster!
Cyborg. Get it right. There is a distinct difference. Chris is taken to Mylene's place, a loft in a warehouse district, to, again, break from how 0091 is supposed to be more of a 60s James Bond kind of story engine. And I gotta tell you, this isn't holding up to the more faithful Daniel Craig films. I would take Pierce Brosnan or Timothy Dalton over this personally, where Chris wakes up and observes that while she doesn't look it, her heart's crying inside. For some reason, causing her to share that she doesn't remember the faces of her family as a bridge point between them. But the problem is the pair have absolutely no chemistry. No chemistry at all. I swear if they pull the reveal that Chris is actually her brother who survived the massacre, I'm out of here. That pathetically written bonding dialogue is enough for the two of them to go and sex it up. Because it's not like they could deal with this in a mature manner at all, could they? I mean, yeah, Mylene slept with people in other stories in the series as part of her job, so the sexual element isn't a problem. But 1, it's too fast. 2, it is without purpose. 3, it comes straight out of nowhere as Mylene is not someone who derives pleasure from sex like this. In fact, it's one of the ways she least derives connection to other people. It's revealed that Now got away with Klein in a continuance of the other agent's mission, which we did not actually see happen. And because Mylene chose to check on the status of Chris's injury before giving chase, she's excommunicated from the agency. Yes, that is their sole reason for turning their back on their best agent at the worst possible time, when she is the most likely agent capable of actually rescuing Klein for whatever they are going to do with her. Now again, this is something they did in the other 0091 media. The final arc of the series had her be temporarily excommunicated from the 00s, but it was because she was disobeying orders to not come in after they called her back. And the reason she broke protocol at that time is she had a lead on what the villains were doing that were causing the worldwide crisis of the moment. And if she delayed to go back to them, she would lose the only possible chance at ending the entire threat they were calling her back to deal with anyways. She ignored orders as she was in a situation where she was going to go do what they would be ordering her to do next anyways, but was skipping the reporting process. Later on, after it was all over, it was acknowledged she made the right decision in heading off the crisis, was reinstated, and nonetheless punished for defiance of orders. Here, it doesn't make any sense as Klein, as far as we were aware before this, was safe, and she lost pursuit because they had a freaking attack helicopter and chose to attack civilians, which again could be inferring what the other 0091 media has and how the agency sees her empathy as both an asset and detriment to her nature as an agent, if it weren't that they were throwing out their best agent for something so petty that it wasn't even a mistake or failure by any reasonable means. She completed the mission they assigned to her in rescuing Klein from the initial abductors. Now was not on the mission specs. Now happened after the mission was already over. It's entirely asinine to blame her for this and take these actions.
Sayonara, monster.
I'm calling it now, these people are too dumb to live. And I just realized this. That's Director Sophie's office from Gavan vs. Deca Ranger. Toei's tendency to recycle sets, or the Space Sheriff's office being a floor-up. You make the call.
私は使い捨ての道具なんかじゃない。
And it is really stupid for them to do that too. Mylene returns home, only to find Chris has had his brains bashed in. Wow, that just makes the conclusion seem all the more pointless. Almost as if they were trying to subvert from the idea of him being the secret villain in all of this, because that is ridiculously cliché. In his hands a bomb that blows up her home, sending her on the run from more agents. Wow, what a douche. You know, 00 could be a dick, but he spent more time defending Mylene as an asset to the organization, which her track record regularly paid off in everything she did, turning out to their advantage by its end. Here, it's a dumb cop-out for their excommunication plot. And really, how many times have Japanese media done this, in that the actual boss of the protagonist is the twist villain or working with the villains of everything? I really should not be making so many comparisons to Traveler's Dimension Police in this review. While it once more is more common in spy media for people to be a double, triple, quadruple dog fakesies agent, this more plays to the corrupt commissioner cliché as opposed to the storyline of a more experienced agent deciding to switch sides for money, power, luxury, or whatever they actually want. Again, I can cite the original story where they did this more maturely, wherein the man who saves Mylene's life as a child went to the other side simply so he could pay for his wife's medical bills. And they had Mylene be the one to execute him for it. And the entire event was played as it should have been. A tragedy that came about from the realities of both their lifestyle and the Cold War playing out around them. Moreover, this kind of twist doesn't work if you've not in any way established the character. Him being evil occurs within the first 5 minutes of this character's total screen time in the movie. He gives her orders, he throws her out of the agency, and then the all according to Keikaku moment, with nothing else there for him. No sign of a deeper relationship with Mylene to validate this as a betrayal. No complex motivations. No build-up with them seeming to be a close confidant later, revealed to be running the lead through a maze like a puppet master. It's just a, oh, and I'm working with the bad guys, reveal to cover how they were doing it is in reality incompetent. It really goes to show how much better written Kamen Rider, which is derided as being nothing more than a brainless action kids show, is at this and handles far better adult subject matter within its narrative than content that was explicitly written for freaking adults. Tachibana's betrayal at the beginning of Kamen Rider Blade was better than this, as they established more in their first 20-minute episode of the series the working relationship between Kanzaki and Tachibana, and the in-media res opening of the series that engendered some idea of a working relationship. It didn't work well, but it worked better than this. Even better example, Mitsuzane Kirishima, as you saw inside of his perspective and mindset, which led into all his acts of betrayal. So while you still thought him a scumbag and making the wrong choice amid his scheming, you at least understood it. Hell, even going to Kamen Rider Build, you understand more of how Sawa's a traitor and spy in their midst, and how she's an indoctrinated double agent programmed from youth to perform such a betrayal. To say nothing about the other double agent games and betrayal scene of that series. Even to cite Kamen Rider Ghost, Adele's complete betrayal of everything in his society to grasp power more made sense within the confines of that narrative, as screwed over as it was, because they more established and set up his reasons and methodology for going about it than this freaking twist has. And I cite all of that because Keiichi Hasegawa, while he didn't write any of those instances I cited beyond the Ghost example, is familiar with such from his other work that he should have been more than capable of pulling that off and legitimizing it, especially with the source material he was handed to work off of where it is commonplace. But you can't half-ass it. Mylene, having escaped her pursuers, has a case of flashback-itis, rehashing parts of the plot we've already seen needlessly, as if she's trying to come to a decision. 020's assistant coming to Butterfly and offering her a task. We cut to a mansion, where amidst some girls in bikinis being sexy in the pool from Kamen Rider 4's, for no goddamn reason. Again, not selling this as a movie for adults with this injection of juvenile fan service. We find Mao Ichimichi being molested by Mylene in disguise. Gokai Yellow, everyone. I'm debating internally whether this or how her character Raptor was treated as Q-Ranger was a bigger insult. Her character's name is Shireen, and she's actually revealed to be one of Mylene's contacts that's decided to help Mylene out, letting her stay in the spy game as she's supplied maps she'll need to rescue Klein alongside resources Mao's employer has decided to provide, because whoever took Klein ended up ruining business for them, and Mylene's won the info in a chess game from him. However, Butterfly intercedes before she can get the data, the contract being revenge for Stinger's death. She kills the businessman, with the pair being knocked into the pool for water sports, and the camera constantly cutting underwater amidst their fighting, which also happens to be done in slow motion, just so the camera can attempt to turn this into a stupid display of sexy. Butterfly tries to say she can't understand what she's cost her, but of course she does. Mao at least getting a chance to do something awesome for her short part in this film, and be the one to actually put Butterfly down. Shireen puts her up for the night in a run-down home, introducing the former spy to her brother Kai and their meager resources. This honestly feels the most adorable part of the film, as Mao and the kid have some pretty decent banter. It's revealed Mylene actually has a tracker on Klein she can use to get to her if she has the resources, the story now pivoting to the idea that Klein knows something about her past which she's somehow forgotten, or is suppressed due to their augmentation. A plot point that doesn't make sense.
この仕事が終わったら情報屋はやめてカイと二人で普通の生活を送るつもりです。だから必ず生きて帰る。
And you totally just tripped the I'm going to die painfully in the following part of the film flag for no goddamn reason. Why are you being so obvious about this? This is supposed to be a movie about clever espionage agents! Klein's location, Area D, is shown to be yet another part of the Toei backlot, because of course, with Mylene entering and hearing that song all over again, racing into the building amidst flashbacks again, and they 2017 Ghost of the Shell before the Scarlett Johansson Ghost of the Shell movie, didn't they?
夢の中のママ
They fucked it up! How do you do this? Did the 2017 Ghost of the Shell writers see this movie and decide to rip it off or something? Is there some more common thing that did this exact thing they were both trying to call back to and rip off? What was the point of this? Now, while yes, you can say in the spy game you can never know what's the truth and what's lies, but come on! A good spy movie is like a good mystery movie. It has to make sense as we have to be conveyed a foundation for such an idea to be possible. You cannot shortcut that with just repeating things back to the same flashback again and again. Once more, I can cite the 0091 anime with a twist about Mylene's family. Turns out a character named Loki, which is an agent from the East Bloc Mylene has an odd attraction to, because they are almost perfect mirrors of one another across the sides of the war, is actually her brother who disappeared and she assumed dead in the same battlefield that killed their parents. The twist being they ended up doing the exact same thing she did, and using their loss to motivate himself through the East Bloc secret agent training as a long-term revenge plot where he'd get all the information to take down both powers to end this cycle of tragedy their Cold War has brought about, making him the final antagonist of the series. Loki's early introduction, followed by Mylene's backstory episode, and concluded with Loki then repeating words spoken by their father about the freedom that was their ever-distant utopia, bridged those disparate points to all work off all of the information we've been supplied, so we make the connections without it ever needing to be said, and thus it blowing our minds with how it's been foreshadowed by innocuous but meaningful details. Here, the song means nothing. The flashbacks meant nothing outside of shortcutting her tragic backstory, and us being hit over the head with them means they weren't even being fucking subtle about it, but spelling it out for us so we're not impressed by this twist, but annoyed because they made it so blatantly obvious. Aren't we smart for having this reveal? No, you're not, because you had to walk us through to it like we're idiots. And I can again cite Traveler's Dimension Police as another Sakamoto project that ended up doing this in the exact freaking way. Though at least there, they were more clever about it in how the main character kept interacting with dimensional doppelgangers of the people she knew, so it actually is clever when it's revealed that the main character is an otherworld doppelganger of the character that we should have been following. I really should not be seeing this many commonalities to Traveler's Dimension Police! While Mylene is tased in the back by Dr. Klein, as it turns out, she's actually evil. Did Aya Sugimoto get typecast? She's pretty much playing the same role she did in Double Forever, only more stupidly. Again, Kamen Rider, which is derided as a kid's show, has more sophistication and complexity in its characters than this movie is presenting. Well, she wakes up bound at restraints with now Nagasawa eating her out. Time and place. The movie once more spends a fair amount of time on this pointless display of eroge that doesn't even come off as sexy. Despite, lesbians, leather, bondage, and Asian girls all being kinks you would think would apply, but no, it's pretty damn revolting. To the point I'm actually reconsidering whether I find Nao Nagasawa sexy. Oh, add another kink. Chris is somehow there watching, as we add another level to the absolute mindfuck that this film has turned into. That's right, now Nagasawa's character is actually Mylene's mother, and she was just having sex with, if not outright raping her. We just witnessed two characters committing incest. Let's get clean. Let's get clean. Let's get clean. Why do we not feel clean? You really cannot get more wrong than this. Granted, by this movie's producer being Kazuo Kato, it explains the hell out of it, as this schlock is entirely descriptive of his entire body of work. But what makes this outright disgusting is the previous reputation a number of these actors had or would possess concerning their roles as superheroes in Japan's popular media. While Nao Nagasawa will literally do anything for a paycheck if you've looked up the projects that have ended up on her IMDb, and is otherwise a consummate professional, this is just crossing a line that only most perverse loser, if they're not being paid to review it like I am, would actually pay to see. Oh, and yeah, Chris is another among the villains, and it's another bad twist for him to be among the manipulators, somehow faking his death before when, Mylene should have been trained to check vitals. But he did all this so she would remember everything that she's forgotten, the truths of the world she'd chosen to forget. Also, she would help him change the world. And again, I freaking called this simply with snark. That isn't intelligent in the slightest. As he doesn't actually have a plan, or at least one that makes sense. He kidnapped Dr. Klein, so she'd assist him in getting codes for missiles to shoot them off and start an actual full-on war that destroy the planet, which doesn't make sense as she was a researcher researching super soldiers and wouldn't have access to such. Now, the anime made more sense that Loki was taking control of a bunch of Esper kids who, through them having networked their powers instinctually, he'd manipulated them into being able to set off nukes and bypass every security measure in place with them, with him safe on the moon, so once everything's settled, the Esper kids, who were within the anime regularly hunted down, tortured and experimented on, would be free to claim Earth as the new human race. Moreover, Loki didn't know Mylene was actually alive until most of the plan had long been set in motion, and he didn't do the whole stupid join me trope. He actually avoided all of this stupidity. She tries, for some reason, to reason with him, saying he'll just cause more people to suffer like they did, that's his motivation for doing this, but he thinks it's the only way, which it isn't. Instead saying he'll survive by becoming one with her. If I could not make more clear my disgust with all this than the scenes of trying to scald myself clean from its filth, you're not going to get it at this point. Moreover, he reveals that every other 00 cyborg, yeah, they're all dead. Despite 20 earlier in the movie saying their forces are full up when he said he was reassigning them, to not even mention now who is holding her right now being one as well, apparently that too was a deception, though for what purpose makes no damn sense considering, well, everything. Again, I place the blame again on producer Kato, since Kamura the First and the Next pulled this same bullshit. And this is confirmed that Mylene's alone among the cyborg ranks as Klein super soldiers. Yeah, turns out...
これが私の新しい道具たち。アンデッドミュータントよ。
I can't believe this. I cannot believe this. You actually ripped off the Necrover stuff from Double Forever for this! And yeah, another thing I call it because they made it so brain-dead obvious, they killed off Maui Chimichi and made her a zombie. Waste of a fucking character and charismatic actress. Mylene breaks free of Nao's grasp and starts beating up the Necrovers, and nothing Mylene does can keep them down for good. Mylene's enhancements, somehow giving her Esper skills so she can hear the pain cries of those converted, as Klein just declares the superiority of her genius as they restrain Mylene again. However, Paul has the control remote for them instead of her, so he just kills Klein for no reason I understand, and they very graphically proceed to eat her alive. Once more, how is it Garo dealt with this more tastefully in how they showed people being eaten by horrors, even an entry as graphic about it as Zero Black Blood was? Paul again demands she fuse with him to become the ultimate being, though how they do so isn't explained. Mylene once more getting her ass kicked by the zombies, in specific Cherises, before managing to grab a gun and somehow figuring out that the control device for Klein's zombies is in her brain. So, like any zombie, they're not the ultimate invincible beings Klein claimed, and you just need to double tap them like everyone else. Again, the Necro-Overs were far superior to this. Double tapping didn't work on them.
やっとわかったわ。私がモンスターになった理由が。
I fucking hate this movie and everyone in it. You so massively missed the point!
この狂った世界を終わらせるため。
Run away, and don't stop until you're free.
Those happy faces made it clear for me. I thought, this is the Western Bloc. This is freedom.
You have the highest honor. You and you alone will be on the front lines of freedom's defense. But don't even stand up unless you're ready.
You might want to commit this to memory, my dear. As free as the Western Bloc is, you'll never ever want to become an intelligence agent like me.
At that moment, those words became the wall I had to get over. And on the other side of that wall was the freedom that my father wanted me to have all those years ago.
Mylene out of nowhere gains the ability to just devastate all the zombies, fights Nao, kills Paul, and then lets Nao break the restraints on her boob gun so she can just shoot the cyborg to death. Even though she did that earlier in the damn movie at point-blank range, and that did nothing. So why does it actually work now? She burns the place down, saying she'd bring about a better world in his name, cutting us to the credits. Yes, they're sequel-baiting us with nothing to follow it up on, but in the post-credit scene, delivers the severed head of Klein back to the 00 agency, despite 20 having been in on this entire plot this entire fucking time, and they never end up following up on that. It is a blatant sequel bag for a movie that will never be made. I will never feel clean again! Seriously, people, it's bad. Certainly the worst thing Keiichi Hasegawa has ever written, and I am including the pointless tangents he was forced to make up for Kamera Ghost when that show got screwed over thanks to Amazon's. It's a butchering of a source material for a story that doesn't let you connect with the characters intimately like any other adaptation did. If anything, its reputation provoking sheer revulsion in anyone remotely familiar with either any other adaptation or the actors involved undersells how awful it actually is. To be honest, I can't understand how it even made into production with a script this awful. While the anime has its detractors, it's still a superior adaptation as it didn't pull its punches. It treated the audience with maturity and respect. Sure, it teased the sexy, sure it had violence, but it was all done with taste. Not to be graphic, not to be edgy, not to demand you take it seriously, but makes you do so simply by the merit of its own storytelling. Whereas here, the storytelling takes a backseat to simply the shock value to the blood, gore, molestation, outright rape, and the fact it happened twice since having sex with someone under false pretenses counts makes that all the more worse. I honestly may never look at anything done by Munehiro Kinimoto or Nao Nagasawa the same way again, and I have sat through several awful movies that Mao's been in already. But this one just takes the cake and covers it in raw sewage. Yes, reviewer hyperbole, but I'm serious here. You can't oversell how bad this is. And the worst thing about this is you could actually have made an entire movie franchise out of this character and the setting of her story. I did not undersell how much Mylene is in many ways a female James Bond. The spy setting in its espionage tales continues to be a thriving epitaph of tales with so many possibilities. Especially with this set in the future where you could easily do all those future tech spy gadgets and cyborg techie body means for enemies and antagonists. And this movie wastes every single chance it had, and instead chose to slut it up. It's almost as if Toei intentionally wants these endeavors to fail as they have been. The success of the awesome John Wick movies shows how you can do a long-form film narrative plot about just one person going on a mission to kill people and make it work really, really well, as that's again a close comparison to Mylene and how she's stunted in her ability to express emotions, but feels them all the same. And Sakamoto has gotten performances of a similar caliber that Keanu Reeves had in that duology going on trilogy, but the assembled actors here have all pulled that off in other series they've worked on, that this should have been a slam dunk for a new annual cash cow for Toei, which they entirely fucked up. I have been avoiding using this specific hyperbole for describing just how sheerly bad Toei adaptations of Ishinomori's works have gotten. But now, thanks to this movie, I finally have grounds to say it. They are so disrespectful that they are literally raping his characters when they, or an analog of them, or a legacy character show up in these movies. Each one they do could have been a respectful adaptation that could print them money, but their actions then sabotage it constantly. It does not surprise me considering the disasters that have resulted in them trying to harvest Ishinomori's properties to remake film events that Akira Onodera finally pulled Toei's license for them entirely. I honestly hope they find a better home for them. As between this, the poor Reputation Kikaider reboot, the first and the next which are both garbage, the Tyson films being so offensive even Toei finally canned them, and the disaster that was Amazon's, which lost Amazon of all companies money even after they imported it, it all screams to the heavens that Toei doesn't understand the story potential of these properties, which they could have turned into new franchises for them to exploit as they are desperately hurting for IPs with good reputations. And they keep putting their worst producers on them instead of getting rid of them. As I've said before, while Toei still does produce good work, more and more often they hamstring or screw over the production staff with their demands or conditions. Be it the rushed nature of the development to Dragon Ball Super, the reduction in animation quality on One Piece and Digimon, Digimon's long recent history of divisively poor series, the superhero time block getting messed up in so many ways over the years I can't even count the grievances its staff has levied, to not even get into how they have tried to limit distribution of their franchises outside of Japan, despite it long being shown by their competitors that it rakes in money for them. That at this point, it's unsurprising they're sabotaging themselves, and thus it's likewise unsurprising the results of this film's production is almost a microcosm of incompetence and disgust who should only be observed as a long list of what not to do to make a good product as they make it too juvenile to actually be appealing. Shotaro Ishinomori in his work never pulled his punches, never talked down to or watered down the intents of his work for the purposes of pandering to an audience, be they little kids, or adults, or even perverted otaku. He told the stories he wanted to, no matter how dark, serious, or shocking they could be. Tales of heroes and villains fighting for what they believed in, and always carrying with them a kindness in their hearts, and a certainness in the duty to help others and protect people through their actions. Even if they lose pieces of themselves in tributes to self-sacrifice along the way. The fact that so many do not understand this most fundamental aspect of his entire body of work, despite the man holding the record for the most chapters published of any manga writer in the history of the entire world, is completely baffling, as it is not that hard a concept to grasp, and yet it keeps slipping through their fingers. And I am likewise utterly baffled by how Media Blasters even thought it was a good idea to not only import this film, but put it up on streaming services for viewing. But I also say that of everything else that's been imported from Kazuo Kato's production library, as all that's there at the end of the day is hours and hours of content that leaves me feeling nothing but the deepest revulsion. If you actually want to have fun with the series, as I've repeatedly inferred, the anime series from the 2000s is the best incarnation of it that exists. As while I'm getting this secondhand, it apparently further expands on some things the original manga didn't have the time for, and also apparently adapts most of the series' plot, so you shouldn't miss anything significant. DVDs of it are still in circulation from both the AVD release and when Funimation later picked it up after their license expired. But Funimation's license of it has now also expired and they're not distributing anymore, so I suggest getting a copy of it while you can. It's not perfect, but to do one last comparison to the James Bond franchise, the anime is analogous to the quality of Daniel Craig's films, while this movie is worse than any affair you would have with Pierce Brosnan or Timothy Dalton. Now, if you excuse me, I have a date with a can of digital brain breach. Gaia memories don't fail me now!